Hello, everyone, and welcome to SouthPark Church. My name is Chris Bedell. I'm one of the directors of student ministry here. If you're a first-time guest with us this morning, we would just like to say welcome. You're going to notice in the service today that there is a mix of both modern worship elements and also traditional worship elements. So it's something really cool that we do, and I'm really excited for you to see that this morning. If you are a first-timer and you'd like to know more information about the church, you can go onto southparkchurch.com/online. And there you can learn all kinds of information, or if you want to get involved in a small group or student ministry or children's ministry, there's all kinds of ways that you can become active and involved to serve. And one of those things that you can do is to give generously to the church to help us in our mission to serve others. And one of those things that we're doing is called the Barnabas Team, that is currently helping people through this time of hardship. So if you are able to give and give generously, it is going a long, long way. Now we have started a new sermon series, and this sermon series is called Turning Pages. Now I personally love to read, so if you're like me, this sermon series is for you. And in this series, what we're doing is taking a look at a story in the Bible, and then the next week, some kind of pop culture story or book. So you're going to notice that in the service today. And if you want to share maybe what book that you are currently reading, that would be awesome. I'm reading a book right now about Lincoln because I'm also a history teacher, so I like to read those kinds of things. So feel free to share in the chat if you're watching online right now, and let us know what you're reading as we go through the service today. So with that said, let's go ahead and prepare our hearts for what God has in store for us.
SouthPark Church. I'm Nikki Bedell. I'm one of the directors of student ministry. And this morning, I would love to welcome you to pray with me. So whether you're most comfortable with your hands raised or your head bowed, please join with me now. Dear Lord, we come to you today with open hearts and open minds. Lead us in your ways. Lord, our world is so broken. Allow us to be your hands and feet here and now. Lord, dark times lie ahead of us, and there will be a time when we must choose between what is easy and what is right. Give us the strength and the courage to decipher between the two. Lord, arm us with bravery, for it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. Lord, we thank you, because even amidst the pain and hurt in our lives, you bring us joy and light. Lord, remind us that happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, that all we need to do is turn to you to turn on the light. Amen.
Hi, I'm Pastor Kyle Thompson. Thank you for worshiping with us today at SouthPark Church. Glad to be back with you as my family and I have returned from our vacation to the beach. We appreciate the time away. It was exactly what we needed, and we were able to do that while we social distanced. And we're just glad to be back, though. We missed you a lot, and I've been excited about this new series that Pastor Lindsay kicked off last week, Turning Pages. And I'm just glad to be a part of that today. And just want to give Pastor Lindsay a shout out today. Thank you so much for preaching such awesome messages while I was gone, and just for being who you are, Pastor Lindsay. And we're so blessed to have you, and just grateful for all of our staff and lay leadership who work so hard to help our congregation lead others in our community to live life to the full in Jesus. And so just so proud of our congregation, and it's good to be back with you. When I was in the second grade, I got the chicken pox, and it was awful. All those bumps came up on my body, and they were very itchy. And I remember going to the doctor and with my parents right after it happened, getting the diagnosis, make sure we knew what it was. And the one thing that my doctor said to us was, don't scratch. He said, it's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult not to scratch. But if you do, you might get scars from your chickenpox that could be with you for the rest of your life. So that message kind of sank in with me. My parents were pretty vigilant to watch over me to make sure that I tried not to scratch. And, of course, I was home from school and got through the chickenpox. It was difficult, but really did a good job of not scratching those chickenpox. And so once they went away, I was so heartbroken to find out that on my forehead and my nose, of all places, visible places, that I had chickenpox scars. And I was really mad about that because I did a good job of not scratching them, and there they were. And I was about 7 years old and knew that when I went back to school, I was going to get made fun of a lot. And so these scars were not something for me to be excited about or to brag about. I know that in our lives, some of us have some really cool scars that hurt at the time, but we can look back and we can say, hey, check this out. I don't know if you've seen the movie Jaws about the big shark, but there's a memorable moment in that movie where some guys are on this boat and they're chasing the big shark. And one night they're sitting around after they've eaten, and a couple of them get into kind of a contest of comparing the scars that they've received in their lives. Hey, I got bit here, or I got cut here. And it's this memorable scene. And so maybe you have a good experience with a scar, not at the time, but in retrospect. And so, you know what? If you got a really cool scar or the way that you got that, if you want to take just a few seconds and drop that in the comments right now, love to see some of those scars and stories, keeping in mind this is a family worship service, okay? But what kind of scars do you have? All that kind of stuff. And we can maybe have a little contest here. I don't know. But just if you feel comfortable sharing that right now. But in the second grade, I was not happy about the scars. And I remember when I went back into school, sure enough, people made fun of me. And the most common way of making fun of me was, hey, how'd you get those holes in your head? And of course, I didn't have holes in my head. I had dents in my head, I guess, scars in my head. But boy, that set me off. I used to get mad. I used to get sad. I was just super upset about these scars. Thankfully, I've moved forward in my life from that point. I still have them. I don't know if you can see them or not. I kind of a distance from the camera here, so you can't see that. But I'm guessing in your life, you have your share of physical scars. Maybe it's from a surgery. Maybe you burned yourself. My son Luke, when he was just a young boy, fell in the kitchen and had to get stitches in his head. And so his hair's growing back over that, but I'm sure he's got a really cool scar there. So we have scars from painful moments in our lives, but not just physical scars. I think all of us have scars inside, like on our heart and on our soul, like emotional scars, relational scars, spiritual scars, pain that we have endured in our lives. Maybe it's scars from abuse that we've had to deal with, and the physical abuse has also brought us mental and emotional anguish, things like that. Many of us have had to face things like racism or sexism and things in our lives like that, and just ridicule or rejection, broken hearts. And so I'm guessing that all of us have some type of scars, whether they're physical scars or scars on our hearts and our souls, or maybe a combination of both of those. And so if you have scars and you're wondering like me, is there hope for us to have healing with our scars? Is there hope for us with the brokenness that our scars represent? Right? Well, what do we do with our scars? What do we do with our brokenness? What do we do with our past baggage of stuff that just continues to drag with us through life? Well, if you ever wondered that, you're in the right place, because today we're going to talk about scars. We're going to talk about brokenness. And we're going to talk about the hope for healing in our lives. And we're going to do that by looking at a couple of different sets of books. The first is from a secular series of books known as Harry Potter. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you've read the books, maybe you've seen the movies, visited the theme park. But we're going to talk about some scarring that goes on in these books. And then we're going to look at the Bible. And we're going to see some interesting things, some parallel messages in this series of books, and then also the series of books that make up the Bible. So I'm excited about that. I hope you are as well. And so let's dive in with that right now. Well, in 2005, before Laura and I had children, one weekend she was going to go away to see some of her family and some of her girlfriends, and just kind of have one of those cool weekends away. And I was going to be by myself in the house, and I'm trying to figure out what I was going to do. And that year, the sixth book in the Harry Potter series, it started in 1997. The sixth book out of 7 books was released, and there was a lot of hoopla with it, just as there had been every other book that had been released. And I thought, you know what? I've never read any of these books. Let me get the first book. Let me read it. I've got some time to myself. Let's see what's going to happen with that. And so while Laura was gone, I got out in the hammock and started reading the book, and I couldn't put it down. And I finished it before she got back on the weekend trip. And then I began to read the rest of the books. I read book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5, and book 6, not in one weekend, but it took me some time to do that. There's some big, thick old books if you hadn't seen them. But I did read those, and I kind of actually did fly through them because they're hard to put down. And then I had to wait like 2 more years to read the last book, because it wasn't going to come out until 2007. But these books are amazing. I don't know if you've read them or not, seen the movies, but the story is captivating. The author, J.K. Rowling, is an amazing author, and with a gift of writing that just sucks you in. And it's just it's an incredible story. And she sold over 500 million copies of the Harry Potter series. That includes the digital copies, that includes the hardbacks, the softbacks, like the books you can actually hold in your hand kind of a thing. And the books themselves have grossed almost $8 billion worth of money. And then the movies themselves, they made movies to follow the books. They also have grossed almost $8 billion on their own. So we're talking close to $16 billion. And that doesn't include the theme park down in Universal. My family and I went down there. Once we had the boys, we took them down there, and it's just amazing to go. It's just like you're transported to the scenery that you've read about or watched on the movies. And it's been very successful. And J.K. Rowling first got the idea when she was riding on a train, and it kind of stuck with her. She began to write that. It took her several years to write the first book. And in the course of doing that, she found herself getting divorced. Her mother died. She was a single mom, basically living in poverty. And then when she finally finished with the book, she tried to get it published. She had 8 publishers reject her. I'm sure those 8 publishers wish they could go back in time and change their minds, because that 9th one has done pretty well in the publishing industry. And so it's amazing. And the series is about a boy named Harry Potter, who at age 11 discovers that he has magical powers, that he is a wizard, and he goes away to a school of magic, and he learns more about his powers. And basically, he's the chosen one to lead the battle of all the people who do good with magic against the evil led by the evil sorcerer Voldemort, who wants to take over the world, that kind of a thing. And so it's just this captivating story over 7 books. Now, you might be wondering, is it okay for a Christian pastor, for Christians, people who follow Jesus, to be so excited about a series that has to do with magic? Because doesn't the Bible talk about how we shouldn't do magic? We should stay away from things like the occult and witchcraft, things like that. So let's just spend a few minutes talking about what that looks like. Absolutely, in the Bible, there's passages against magic and magicians, things like that. But from my understanding, it's in specific circumstances when people are calling upon the devil to have power in the world to do things, and that certainly is wrong. There are other passages in the scripture where people are calling upon gods who don't exist. They believe they exist, but they don't really exist, and they're trying to get powers to do things in the world. So when we call on anything for power other than God, right? Jesus, God the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Yeah, we don't want to pursue that. We don't want to pursue powers outside of God. There's also, passages in the Bible that they're probably, talking about using deceit, right? Kind of trickery to pull one over on somebody, to gain something for us and to kind of harm them. And so that's not something that we want to do either. But the magic that's in the Harry Potter books is make-believe. It doesn't exist. And it's a device used in a story. And it's similar to other magic that we find in stories like Cinderella and Snow White, The Wizard of Oz. Lord, I have some friends that found out that, we read the Harry Potter books, we watched the movies, and they're like, how can you do that? You're Christians. You can't do that. And at the same time, they said, we're so excited to be going to Disney because our daughters want to go see Cinderella and Snow White and all that. I just politely said, well, what's the difference in the magic in one and the other? And it really opened up a good conversation that we had together. And so again, the magic of stories, the magic of books, it's not real. It's make-believe. And I think it's a device to tell a story. And the way I kind of see that is that the magic in Harry Potter kind of symbolizes our power in life. And we all have power. We have influence. We have abilities, some more than others. It just depends on what we do and where we are and where we find ourselves. But we all have power and influence and abilities to do things. And how we choose to do that is important. We can use that for good or we can use that for evil. And so in the Harry Potter books, there's good magicians and there are evil magicians, all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of where I land on all of this. So why should Christians want to read Harry Potter? What's good about it? Well, I think overall, the plot's just amazing. It's about good versus evil. It's about love. It's about hope and courage. It's about family. It's about friends and relationships. It's about sacrifice. All the major things that we find in the Bible, I think most of them anyway, can be found in Harry Potter, which is kind of cool. It's a parallel to some of the bigger arching themes that we believe that are real, that come to us from Scripture. I think another thing that Harry Potter does is it helps us to look at the world and kind of look beyond just our everyday encounters of going to work, going to school, whatever it is, going shopping or whatever. That we look around in the world, and if we look carefully enough, we'll see that there's stuff in the world beyond what we just see, that there's supernatural stuff in the world. In Harry Potter, it's magic, with wands and broomsticks and things like that. But as followers of Jesus, we believe that there are spiritual powers in the world. There's God and goodness, and there's the devil, and there are angels and demons and all that kind of stuff. And so Harry Potter kind of awakens us that there's more to the world than meets the eye. And so it helps us to begin to think about what are the spiritual forces in the world and which ones are good and which ones are evil. Another thing I think is cool about Harry Potter as a Christian is it talks about some scars, just like I started out the message today with. And so I'd like to dive into that right now as we think about scars in our lives, because there's some cool stuff in Harry Potter about scars. And probably the most memorable scar that's in Harry Potter is that he has a lightning bolt scar on his forehead. And he was given that scar in a terrible circumstance. When he was just 15 months old, before Harry was even 2 years old, the evil wizard Voldemort came to kill Harry's parents and to kill him because they were on the side of goodness. And so Voldemort comes in and he uses a killing curse, and he kills Harry's dad, and he kills Harry's mom and tries to kill Harry. But when he shoots Harry with the killing curse, it bounces back and ricochets and hits Voldemort. It really messes him up. For several books, he's messed up like that. But it leaves this scar of a lightning bolt on Harry's head. And I want to read to you just a few quotes from the Harry Potter series. This is specifically from the first book in the Harry Potter story, The Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone, as it was published originally, that talk about the scar. And it's going to apply to our lives. So hang on, and let's just see how that does. The first quote comes from one of Harry's friends, who's an adult who works at the School of Magic, Hogwarts, and his name is Hagrid. And this is what Hagrid says to Harry about his scar. "Yes, that ain't no ordinary cut on your forehead, Harry. A mark like that only comes from being touched by a curse, and an evil curse at that." All right, so Hagrid's explaining that Harry had that scar because Voldemort used the curse to kill his parents and tried to kill Harry. Now, this next quote comes from a discussion from the headmaster of Hogwarts, the School of Magic, Wizardry, and all that kind of stuff. His name is Albus Dumbledore, and he's talking to a professor named Minerva McGonagall about Harry's scar. And let's see what they say. "He'll have that scar forever. Couldn't you do something about it, Dumbledore? Even if I could, I wouldn't. Scars can come in handy. I have one myself above my left knee that is a perfect map of the London Underground." Now that's kind of funny. The London Underground is the subway system in London. Dumbledore says he has a scar that is the map of that, which make things convenient when you're on the subway system. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. It's fiction. Of course, it's all made up. But anyway, I think the point here is that Dumbledore says that scars can be useful. That's an interesting idea. There might be something good to our scars. Maybe it's that when we look at our scars, we can see how far we've come from when we got hurt and how our lives have gotten better since then. I don't know. How could your scar be positive in your life? One more quote, and this is from near the end of the first book, where the headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, is talking to Harry about his scar. And he's explaining to Harry why that scar is so powerful. "Your mother died to save you. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. Love as powerful as your mother's for you leaves its own mark. To have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever." So what's happened here is Harry figures out exactly what happened the night that his parents died. Voldemort killed his father with the killing curse. Then he was going to try to kill Harry, but Harry's mom jumped in front of it. She died. And in doing that, she released a special kind of magic, sacrificial love for her son, that then protected Harry, that Voldemort couldn't see. And so he shot Harry with the killing curse. Harry was protected by his mother's sacrificial love, and it backfired and messed Voldemort up. And then he had the scar of the lightning bolt on his forehead. So let's think about that. Something that was meant to be a curse ends up being related to sacrificial love that saves someone. Something that was intended to be a curse ends up being related to sacrificial love that saves someone. Does that sound familiar? For those of us who follow Jesus, it absolutely does. That's the good news. It's the story of Jesus. The curse that he died on the cross and he came back to life so that we can be saved. Let's jump to the Bible and learn more about what that looks like. I want to start in the book of Isaiah. It's in the Old Testament. Isaiah was a prophet, and a prophet is a spokesperson for God. So God gave Isaiah a message to give to the people of Israel. And this was somewhere around the year 500, 550 years before Jesus was born. And the people of Israel are in trouble. They've been disobedient against God. They've done evil things. And they're facing some tough discipline. Another nation has come in. They've defeated the Israelites. They've taken them into captivity. But God's not giving up on them yet. And God is sending Isaiah with a message of hope. And the specific message is that God's going to send a servant to come and to save the people of Israel. But it's not going to be the servant that necessarily they expect it to be. So let's read in Isaiah chapter 52 and 53, about 10 or so verses about what this servant is going to be like. See, my servant will act wisely. He will be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. Just as there were many who were appalled at him, his appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any human being, and his form was marred beyond any human likeness. So he will sprinkle many nations, and kings will shut their mouths because of him. For what they were not told, they will see, and what they have not heard, they will understand. So Isaiah is saying God's message of, my servant will be victorious. But this is not going to be any servant that you've ever seen before, not some fancy political or military leader. This is going to be a servant who is lowly and who is scarred and who is going to suffer. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain, like one from whom people hide their faces. He was despised, and we held him in low esteem. This is a servant that people are going to despise, and is going to suffer, and bad things are going to happen to him. This is not usually the kind of a person that God sends to save the day. So what's going on here? Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering. Yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him. And by his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. So this servant takes the punishment of the people of Israel upon himself. He suffers for the people of Israel. He suffers for their guilt. He suffers for their shame. And he suffers so that the people of Israel can be saved by God. Now, what's going to happen is that God's going to send a leader from the country of Persia named Cyrus to rescue the people from their captivity, bring them back to the promised land of Israel. And that's going to be a military kind of operation to save them. And I think that's important. I think that's of God. I think there's some stuff in Isaiah that talks about the coming of Cyrus the Great as he was known. But I think what Isaiah is talking about here goes beyond that. And it's actually talking about Jesus. 500 years from now, Jesus is going to come and he's going to save Israel. But not just Israel, all the people in the world. Right? So Jesus, the Son of God, God himself, who is perfect, is going to allow himself to be cursed, to die on a tree, and to be nailed on a cross, right, made out of a tree. And in doing so, Jesus takes upon himself Israel's and all people's guilt and shame from our wrongdoing, our sin when we do things wrong. Jesus is going to take upon himself our death. The consequence of sin is death. We're going to die. Our bodies are going to die one day. And also the consequence of hell, being separated from God for eternity. Right? Jesus took all of that upon himself, our guilt and our shame, our death and our hell. Right? You talk about scars and brokenness, stuff that's just baggage on the inside of us. He took it all on the cross and he allowed himself to be cursed. Paul talks about it in the New Testament, this pastor guy named Paul, and he's writing to a church in Galatia, and he says that Jesus became a curse when he was nailed to that tree. Right? And so by his wounds, we are healed. Right? Our sin, our guilt and our shame and our death and our hell, it's all healed. And it's replaced with joy and peace and life to the full on this earth and life forever in the kingdom of God. Right? When we die and come back to life with a new body, right? That's what Jesus does for us. And so what's the point? What's the big idea? What's the takeaway? How does it relate here? I think today it's very simple. It's just straightforward out of Scripture, right? So what? Right? By his wounds we are healed. Right? By Jesus' wounds, we are healed. Our sin, our death, our hell, our brokenness, our separation, our guilt, our shame, it is all healed. And it's replaced with love and joy and peace and life to the full and life forever in the kingdom of God. Jesus heals those scars on the inside. The pain that we have from broken relationships and brokenness in our lives is healed by Jesus. And it's healed by his wounds. Just like Harry Potter's mom sacrificed herself for her son, Jesus sacrificed himself for all of us. Right? And so I love how the parallel stories are lining up here. We believe in the truth and the power and the gospel of Jesus, and somehow J.K. Rowling has tapped into that universal truth that goes all the way back to Jesus dying for us on the cross and coming back to life. By his wounds we are healed. And what it means is that Jesus loves us and accepts us, scars and all. So we come to God broken. We come to God with sin in our lives. We come to God with guilt and shame. We come to God with scars that other people have inflicted upon us that we don't deserve, right? We've been abused and harmed by others, and it's not our fault, but it still hurts, right? Jesus is ready to help us, right, to be healed internally of all that stuff that goes on in our lives. By his wounds, we are healed. That's the power of the gospel. And I hope that that's something that you've accepted. And if not, that you're ready to invite Jesus in now and to ask Jesus to heal you with his wounds and to ask him for forgiveness for the wrong things that you've done and to help let go of that baggage that other people have done to you when you haven't deserved it, right? This is an opportunity for us to receive the healing power of Jesus. One more book I want to read to you from, and this is from a biblical commentary that I was reading getting ready for today's message. And it talks about the gospel, the application of the gospel of Jesus, the good news that by his wounds we are healed. And I think it really applies to things in our lives right now in the year 2020 in America. Because I think not only do we have individual like scars, I think we have scars as a nation in the United States of America. I think we have scars as a world. And I think Jesus can help with that. Let me read to you this quote from this biblical commentary that I think is powerful, talking about the gospel of Jesus. A personal gospel that does not impel us into society is deficient. Right? This is the first of two parts of a quote. A personal gospel that does not impel us into society is deficient. What does that mean? We're in a loving personal relationship with Jesus when we ask him to be our Lord and Savior. That's a personal thing that happens to us. But God doesn't expect it to stop there. Right? If we've been healed by God, God expects us to go back out in the world and help other people who need healing, right? Who need spiritual healing and emotional healing, that we can go to others and say, I've been healed by Jesus, so can you. And we invite them to church and we want to go out and we want to tell them about what God's done for us in our lives. And so it's not just a personal gospel, it's a social gospel, and it's inspired by Jesus. Right? We see brokenness in the world, and God calls us as followers of Jesus who've been healed to go out and to help bring healing. That we're supposed to fight against racism. We're supposed to fight against injustice. We're supposed to try to bring our leaders in our nation together to figure out how not to make the coronavirus a political issue, but to make it a medical issue. And that we're all in this together. We've got to figure out a way to find healing together. Right? Our personal gospel can't just stop with us and God. It goes out into society, right? So let me read that again. A personal gospel that does not impel us into society is deficient. That's the first part. Now, let's see what the next part says. Just as a social gospel that does not spring from a transformed person is deficient. One more time. Just as a social gospel that does not spring from a transformed person is deficient. Okay. What does that mean? There's a lot of talk right now in America about social justice, and it's about time, right? I know we've had moments of social justice in the past, but we really need some social justice now. There's terrible things happening with racism, terrible things happening with injustice, terrible things happening with poverty and oppression and all kinds of things that continue to happen in our nation. And so there's a lot of stuff happening around social justice, and that's good. What this quote is saying about the gospel is that social justice that's not anchored in Jesus is deficient. It's going to be lacking, and it's not truly going to transform our nation as it could. Because for social justice to really happen, people's lives have to be transformed on the inside by God. I think there are a lot of people right now who are jumping on the Black Lives Matter bandwagon, which we certainly support, that Black Lives Matter. And terrible things have been done and are being done to people in our nation because they have a black skin color, right? And that's so wrong. And there's been a lot of movement that Black Lives Matter, and that's so very important. And I think some people are truly acting out of the goodness of their hearts. I also think that some people are just giving lip service to this And they're just going along with the flow because it's the politically correct thing to do, or it's a way to ensure that their customers keep coming or spending money in their store, or it gets them reelected, right? And so social justice is not anchored in Jesus is deficient, right? Because it's going to fall apart at some point. The way that we change society and that we have social justice is that we let Jesus work through us, because only Jesus can change us. Only Jesus can transform us, right? Jesus meets us where we are and helps us become something more. If we want to wipe out racism, then we have to do that one person at a time. If I want to wipe out racism in my life, right, I've got to allow Jesus to transform my heart and to fight against the prejudice and racism that I have in my own heart, right? That has to be something that happens inside of all of us. And then we work out in society, right? We come together as a church. We come together as the government. We come together to do social justice. But if that social justice is not anchored in Jesus, then at some point it's just going to fizzle away, because people's lives haven't been transformed. We're just going through the motion. We're just giving it lip service. Social justice is not anchored in the transforming power and love of Jesus is deficient, right? So I love this quote. Right? I love this quote. I'm going to read it to you one more time. I know you're probably getting tired of it, but just one more time, just let's listen to this, the two parts. A personal gospel that does not impel us into society is deficient, just as a social gospel that does not spring from a transformed person is deficient. So what does that look like in our lives? What can we do? I'd like to challenge you to do two things, right? And knowing that by his wounds we are healed, by Jesus' wounds we are healed. First thing would be just allow yourself to be healed by Jesus. Right? If you're carrying around baggage, if you're carrying around a relational scars, if you're carrying around emotional, spiritual scars, right? Carrying around sin and guilt and shame or death and hell, let Jesus heal you. That's why he came. That's why he died on a cross. That's why he came back to life. Right? I've talked about how we do that. We invite him into our lives. We confess the wrong things that we've done. We hand over the things that are weighing us down that are not our fault, right? We invite Jesus to come in and do what he came to do, and that's to heal us by his wounds, right? So if you haven't been healed by Jesus, I encourage you to allow him to come and to heal you. If you have been healed by Jesus, you've converted, you've become a Christian, and some things have happened since then that you haven't been able to let go, and now it's time for you to ask Jesus to heal you, right? By his wounds we are healed. The second thing I'd ask you to do is to help somebody with their pain in your life in the name of Jesus, right? If you see somebody in pain, try to help them, right? And do it in the name of Jesus, right? Remember, our social justice, our work in the world, right? It's got to be anchored in Jesus and the transforming power of Christ, right? So if you see someone who's battling an addiction that you've battled, who better than to help get them connected in the right place or support them? If you've survived abuse and you know of others who have survived similar abuse, who better than you than to speak into their lives and to encourage them and to talk about how God has helped you in your struggle? If you see racism or injustice, right, you see pain in the world, right, get involved, right? Jesus carried our sorrows and our pain, right? We are called to help other people be unburdened from their sorrows and their pain, and we do that through the power of Jesus. And maybe, right, the pain that you're seeing in someone's life is spiritual, that someone is far from God and they don't even know how to articulate that they are in a bad spot because they don't have a loving personal relationship with Jesus. If that's the case, right, invite them to church. Tell them what God's done in your life. Connect them to God, right? Receive the healing of Jesus yourself and help ease people's pain in the name of Jesus. By his wounds, we are healed. When I was in the second grade and those scars came, the ridicule came, I remember the doctor saying to us to put cocoa butter lotion on the scars and it would help treat them. I misunderstood that as a 7-year-old. I thought it would cure them. And so we got this thick cocoa butter, and every night I would put it onto my scars and I would fill them in, kind of like you fill in a divot on a golf course. And I'd put so much cocoa butter lotion into the holes on my head that they would be flush with the rest of my skin. And I believed and I prayed and I thought that in the morning that cocoa butter lotion would turn into skin and my forehead would be healed and it would look normal again. Of course, that never happened. And I woke up many days disappointed and sad. And thankfully, my parents were there and they helped me deal with that. And that was just a crushing blow. And I've discovered that, right, Jesus heals our scars on the inside, but the outside scars we still have to live with. Now, the good news is that Jesus gave me the strength to get through that, to get through the ridicule, sent me family and friends who loved me and surrounded me with support. And pretty soon, I didn't care what people said. I still have the scars. I don't even see them anymore. It's a part of my story, right? Dumbledore said that our scars can have a good purpose. It's a part of my story. And I look back and see how God got me through that. And beyond that, God's got me through much worse. Through a lot of scars on my heart, a lot of scars on my soul. And God has healed those. And by his wounds, I've been healed. And my prayer and my hope for you is that by his wounds, you will be healed. Receive Jesus. Help ease the pain of someone in your life in the name of Jesus. By his wounds, we are healed. Be healed by Jesus. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Now I'm excited to invite Cole and our praise team to come and lead us in our closing worship song as we sing about the powerful love of God that was displayed on the cross. That by his wounds we are healed. Let's sing in response to God, thanking God for that tremendous love.
Our God is the God of love. Our God is the God who wants to know your heart. He wants to know you personally. He calls you by name to worship him now. Will you sing this with me? I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. I took a breath and you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. It's who our God is. Full of love, full of compassion. Our God wants to be there for you this morning. Will you let him in? I was your foe, still your love fought for me, yes. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. He's a good guy. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Thanks for joining us for worship today. Before we go, I just want to tell you about a couple things that are coming up. I'm Pastor Lindsay, and one of the things that I get to do in my role here is to help us be intentional about how we're growing in our faith. And so we have decided to offer 2 study groups that are going to be starting the first week of August. Both of them start that same week. You know, there are things that are going on around us in the world right now. And so we really want to be thoughtful about how we respond as followers of Jesus. And so we want to offer these 2 different classes. The first is going to focus on parenting. We just had some announcements this week in our county. And so a lot of us who have children at home are gearing up for some more virtual schooling for our kids at home. And we are facing things, parenting our kids that we haven't before. So the first class we're offering is called Parenting Beyond Your Capacity. It is a 6-week video-based study, and Jenny McEwen, who leads our Explorers Children Ministry, is going to facilitate that. So it's going to be an online group that will watch the video together and then have discussions about real-life stuff that's going on in our life and our parenting. It's going to be Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. starting August 2nd. The other class is a class that focuses on race and racism. So this is such an important topic right now. And again, we want to be thoughtful and intentional about how we are learning and growing and moving forward in faithfulness in this topic. So we are going to take a class together called Brownicity. This is a virtual 5-week anti-racism course. And it really presents a framework for thinking and talking about race and racism in our country. So it's a class for anyone, but it's taught from a Christian perspective, and it really provides an on-ramp for learning and conversation, even if you might feel nervous about the topic and haven't had many conversations about it. So it's a class that's virtual, but it is taught live by Dr. Lucretia Berry. She's the one who developed the class, and this is Tuesdays at 8 p.m. So again, both of these classes are going to be happening starting the first week of August. More information and signups will be in the church's Wednesday emails. So make sure you're getting those, and I hope that you'll join us for one or both of those classes. All right, thanks for joining us and worshiping with us this morning. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you again soon.